Heather Hewitt with that report. The Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, has secured an historic foreign policy breakthrough, a deal with China for an annual meeting between the nation's top political leaders. It represents one of the biggest developments in the relationship since former Prime Minister Gough Whitlam first recognised the communist state 40 years ago. The Prime Minister is in China with a high-level delegation. One of those with her is the Minister for Employment and Financial Services, Bill Shorten. He joined me from Beijing. Bill Shorten, what do you think will be the benefits to Australia of these annual talks?
Increased trade, increased opportunities for economic investment two ways, more jobs for Australians, a stronger economy for Australia, the ability for us to export our services into the fastest growing region, to the biggest country in the world.
Free trade talks are set to resume between China and Australia next month. Those negotiations have been going on for 8 years now without a deal. What are the sticking points?
I think there are some still difficult issues to work through. Trade Minister Emerson has got carriage of the particular issues. It's been going for 8 years. There's been 18 meetings. What was clear, though, from the meeting between the Prime Minister of China and the Prime Minister of Australia is that we recognise that we're different countries, different languages, different systems, different stage of development. But what was stated yesterday was a mutual will to work on the things which divide us, to identify the problems and move forward.
And what have been identified as the things that divide us that require work?
Well, in terms of the delegation which I took to China, which is the superannuation industry, both Australia and China have ageing populations. Both countries know that we need to encourage people to save more money for their retirement, but it's clear that China will need to liberalise its securities laws. It'll need to liberalise the ability of foreign direct investment, the ability of Australian funds to invest in start-up companies on the stock markets in China.
Does our ally Japan have anything to worry about, given the new level that this China-Australia relationship's going to, given the tensions that exist between China and Japan?
No, Australia and China have got complementary economies. In other words, we have things which they need, and they are a growth market for us and services and the creation of good jobs in Australia. It doesn't change our relationships with other friends and allies and participants in our region. Certainly for us, though, just as we have very serious dialogues with Indonesia, with India, adding China to that list is a good step forward for Australia's economic interests and the interests of China as well.
Do you think that we've had good enough people-to-people relationships with the Chinese leadership up to this point?
Well, it's 41 years since Gough Whitlam famously sat down with Zhou Enlai and they spoke for 3 hours, and then at about the third hour of the dialogue, Zhou Enlai in perfect English corrected his interpreter. Then I think the erudite Whitlam and the suave Zhou Enlai had another half hour talking in English about everything from Greek mythology to music. So I think Labor under Whitlam set the tenor for good relations. I think every successive generation of Australian political leader has endeavoured to add to it, but there is no question in my mind, there's no question in the mind of Australia's business leaders who've been here over the last few days. I actually don't think there was much question in the mind of the Australian journalists travelling with the Prime Minister. Yesterday saw China say to Australia, we think you're a special country, we want to have annual dialogues between the leaders of our two countries, and it was a real breakthrough, I think, taking the Australian relationship with China, which is rising, and Australia, who seeks to benefit from our proximity to the Asian region. I think there's a lot of good news for ordinary Chinese and for ordinary Australians in yesterday's developments.
If I can just ask you about another matter, we had a story on the program tonight about the stoush in the Labor Party in Victoria over the pre-selection in Nicola Roxon's soon-to-be vacated seat of Gellibrand. In your opinion, should a woman be the candidate in that seat?
In my opinion, the locals should have a say in their pre-selection. I understand there's been the voting. I understand that a candidate was chosen last night, Tim Watts. I think he'll make a very good contribution. Labor has a track record of supporting capable people and indeed capable women. Nicola Roxon was a remarkable Attorney General and made a remarkable contribution over 15 years. We shouldn't forget, if it comes to the record of backing women, Australian Labor helped choose Australia's first female Prime Minister.
How much do you see the hand of Stephen Conroy in how this has turned out, and are you upset with Stephen Conroy?
No, I'm not. And all parties go through pre-selection processes. I think Barnaby Joyce is the second or third Conservative candidate to be nominated to run against Tony Windsor in the seat of New England.
You look like you tried to duck my question there about Stephen Conroy's involvement.
No, I don't. He lives in the area. He has one vote. There were 404 other people. What I'm doing, though, Leigh, is telling you straight, Labor's picked a good candidate. Tim Watts will be a good candidate, as will all the Labor candidates running in the next federal election.
Bill Shorten, thank you very much.
Thanks, Leigh. Bye.